At first, Millie decided it would be best to keep her intriguing discovery of the black lizard in the forest to only herself. Days later, after noticing debility warnings, she had an alarming realization. While Millie recognized how important it was for her to involve a veterinarian to help restore its health, little did she know exactly how extraordinary his response to the animal would be. This made Millie feel terribly uneasy, and eventually, she had an urge deep inside to walk away from the creature. Millie stared wide-eyed at the vet when she showed him her exciting find, the little black lizard. He responded with a mix of agitation and terror, begging Millie and her father to back away from the creature immediately. Curiosity swept through the air as the vet rushed out of the room faster than a speeding bullet, unexpectedly grabbing a nearby phone and clearly not wanting them to hear his conversation. They both began wondering what could it have been so urgent about. Millie's heart raced wildly as her overriding concern emerged: would the vet separate her from lizard? The vet recognized the species at first sight, a type of animal that was not supposed to be found in the country. Feeling overwhelmed and out of his depth, he called for professionals who specialized in these matters. The experts brought numerous questions with them about the creature's origins and behavior that Millie and her father had to answer. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Every time Millie made her way into the forest, she felt the thrill of a brand new adventure. Just near the house of Millie was a forest that was perfect for her leisurely stroll. As she was delighted to be outside, she filled her basket with glass jars for collecting bugs, prepared to spend hours in the mesmerizing landscape ahead of her. But out of nowhere, a peculiar creature made an appearance and changed the whole course of her plans. Most of the time, Millie had to be accompanied by an adult when she explored the forest. This trip was different. For the first time, she was exploring all by herself. It was a strange feeling of freedom and responsibility that she had never experienced before. 9 years old and completely unsupervised, she was suddenly responsible for her own safety. She was determined not to disappoint her father and prove to him that she could take care of herself. The father of Millie was determined to have his daughter experience the wonders of exploring nature on her own. Despite the objections from his wife Anastasia, he had a deep conviction that Millie was ready for the challenge. Near the house of Millie was a forest that was perfect for her leisurely stroll. As she was delighted to be outside, she filled her basket with glass jars for collecting bugs, prepared to spend hours in the mesmerizing landscape ahead of her. But out of nowhere, a peculiar creature made an appearance and changed the whole course of her plans. Even after a closer inspection, Millie could not comprehend the creature's strange appearance. Its body was like a lizard's, but its coloration was different, a dark black. Millie searched through her basket to find a container that would be suitable for the lizard. She started filling the jar with moss and leaves to make a comfortable home for her new companion. In a matter of seconds, Millie had the creature safely inside the jar. Millie was curious about knowing the name of her newly found lizard, so she decided to check more information online while coming back home. But the lack of internet connection in the forest made her wait until she got out. Unexpectedly, she found that there were many types of lizards with black color, and it made her search for the right one even more difficult. Nevertheless, she was determined to find out what species of lizard she had found in the forest. Finally, Millie reached her home and her parents were overjoyed to see her. They excitedly asked her about what she had been up to, but Millie was hesitant about telling them the details of a wild encounter she'd had involving a lively lizard she found in forest. After thinking the situation through, Millie decided to keep her discovery private for the time being. She was filled with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation, so she plastered a smile on her face and announced to her parents that her day had been wonderful. She said she'd be retiring to her bedroom for a bit of much-needed relaxation. Millie knew that there was more she had to do if she wanted to give it the best possible environment. She needed to find out what kinds of food and water her new friend would need. Millie remembered the stories her parents had told her about the fish tank they kept in their attic. After a few daring moves, Millie made her way out of the house, scaling the roof and ensuring that she hasn't been spotted by anyone. With determination, she ventured into her garden to find the perfect decorations for her tank. Millie started her mission to provide the little guy with its sustenance of choice. After getting her new pet set up in its new home, Millie stepped back and marveled at the mini ecosystem she had created. But she then put some bugs into the terrarium and sealed the glass enclosure with great satisfaction. Everything was going smoothly for Millie and her lizard until she noticed that it wasn't drinking enough. The eating habits of the lizard started to change and Millie could see that it was not adapting to its new environment. Also, she noticed that its energy levels were decreasing and it seemed to be losing its appetite. Millie became worried and knew that something must have been wrong with the little creature since it was not behaving normally. She started searching online for alternatives and came across threads discussing how heat lamps were an expensive but necessary requirement for creating the ideal environment. Millie was very upset and scared that her parents would not approve of her keeping the lizard a secret. She knew she had to tell them but was afraid of their reaction. Taking a deep breath and steeling herself, she slowly opened the living room door and stepped inside, holding the terrarium close to her chest. Anastasia greeted her daughter with a warm smile, but it quickly dropped away from her face when she noticed what was in Millie's handy old fish tank. Anastasia's eyes widened, and she knew something was up. Acacia moved closer, trying to find out what was creating such emotion in her daughter. When her mother asked her about it, Millie attempted to explain but was unable to do so. Anastasia saw that she was struggling through tears and decided to help her. Anastasia was eager to know about the fish tank her daughter had created and investigate further. Just then, something caught Anastasia's eye. It was a little creature hopping inside the tank. She got shocked and flung back, not expecting any living thing in there. "What is it?" she asked her daughter. Millie saw the surprise and fear in her mother's eyes. Gathering her courage, she began to explain. Millie bravely started to narrate the tale of the creature. She told how she had found it in the wild. After a long explanation and tough persuasion, Anastasia was very confused. She was conflicted between her need to enforce the family rule and her daughter's genuine compassion for this creature. Anastasia was about to give her answer when the door suddenly opened and Michael entered with a huge smile on his face. He had been away at work all day and was oblivious to this situation until now. After getting inside the room, he immediately gravitated toward the creature and observed it with great fascination. Seeing its fragile state, Michael was filled with compassion because he too had a strong connection with nature. Millie let her parents know that lately, Sirius, her incredible mystery lizard, had been acting abnormally. This marvelous critter no longer felt like having anything to eat or drink and was lacking its usual enthusiasm. To make sure everything would be all right with little Sirius, she asked her parents to pay a visit to an experienced vet before they ran out of time. Michael believed the animal was fully adapted to its environment, but Millie captured it and restrained it in a significantly constrained atmosphere. It's conceivable that the animal doesn't need a vet, but rather would benefit from a return to nature with its open terrains. Millie had an epiphany that the animal probably needed her help. One problem, though her parents weren't enthused about her altruism. That didn't stop her intrepid spirit though. Millie was very concerned about the lizard's well-being and was determined to do all she could to help. She proposed a creative solution offering to cover the vet costs if her parents let her accompany them. If the lizard came out healthy, Millie intended to release it back into its natural habitat. Despite her father's caution about the potentially high financial cost of treating a wild animal and its long-term debt, Millie's determination to help earned her parents' admiration. Anastasia was uneasy regarding Millie splurging her money on the vet. Michael, on the other hand, backed Millie whatever she decided wholeheartedly as usual. After seeing this, all agitation changed to affirmation. Michael was feeling lucky when he called the vet's office to make an appointment for the rescue lizard. Yet miraculously, they had a spot available just later that afternoon. Millie and Michael arrived at the vet to discover there was a bit of a wait. The vet was dealing with a tricky operation, so they both felt it okay to take their time. So her beloved lizard Sirius now had absolutely loads of time to wind down before being looked at. The exhausted vet invited the duo into his office at an unearthly hour, hoping to haste through the necessary paperwork and be done and dusted in no time. As the pet was carefully placed onto the exam table, something unusual caught the vet's eye, and his curiosity was piqued. At that moment, he bounded back like there was something propelling him away, before firmly advocating Millie and Michael to steal back from the box. His words contributing to a sense of mystique, the two followed his command, yet hungry for an explanation. And Millie and her father were requested to take a seat in a room and watch as the vet zoomed off to another area with their glass box. Millie and Michael sighed uneasily as the minutes crawled by slowly. The air was heavy with anticipation, while occasionally interrupted by the sound of their vet's weakened voice making a confusing number of calls. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of fear and dread, the vet returned empty-handed. This news was too much for Millie. She was on a mission to get some answers. Where had her little friend gone? Questions like this bubbled up in her mind until she demanded to know what had happened. But little did that satisfy the vet, who insisted they provide information before they could even think about getting any themselves. The vet began to ask Millie a series of questions. The girl was brave enough to tell the vet about her mistake. She had gone ahead and handled the animal with no protection. She expected withering disdain from her dad, but was met instead with a fear of potential danger. Luckily for them both, the vet quickly reassured them with their curtailed presence of mind. The vet smiled softly when Millie responded so positively to his tests. It was clear he felt relieved by her responses. He informed both that the toxicity levels were low. Therefore, they didn't need to worry much about the reptile anymore. To serve as extra support, the vet had already contacted animal control and invited them to come over shortly. Even though the situation was under control, it was nice to know that a professional would handle the rest. Millie's eyebrows furrowed as the vet shared the bad news her beloved lizard had to be taken away. No detail was overlooked, recognizing it right away. This vet had confessed that just like any other veterinary professional in the area, he had also received a message from the animal shelter about this very lizard. It had been a week since the message was sent out, but it was quickly evident that this reptile had found its way to the vet's office. The vet gave a shocker of news. The lizard was more than just uncommon, it was an endangered species. Conservationists had established special breeding programs to save these animals, and they were working. And it looked like Sirius had created a bit of a mess. He had broken away from one of these breeding programs, which was right in Millie's neighborhood. This was an unexpected surprise, and it made Millie realize the importance of protecting these remarkable creatures. The lizard which Millie had found was a male, and he was the only one of his kind. It was a unique opportunity for Millie and Michael to help out the conservationists. They decided to give Sirius back to the breeding program and help keep these endangered species alive. The conservationists were incredibly grateful and relieved to have Sirius back safely. Millie and Michael had never expected such a momentous event in their lives. They had gone from feeling helpless to making a real difference in the world. Sirius had much more on his plate than just playing companion to humans and observing nature. He was part of something bigger, an effort to save an entire species, and Millie was his guardian. For her efforts, the university offered to cover her first 2 years of education expenses. No veterinarian costs applied. Brave little gem. It was a tremendous success for Millie, and one that she will always remember. In the end, it was a win-win situation for everyone.